People who live east of Atlanta are celebrating after learning an ICE detention facility will not be built in their neighborhood.
Well, Atlanta News First anchor Wale Aliyu here in studio. And Wale, residents of Social Circle, they thank lawmakers on both sides of the aisle for this.
Well, as you guys know, we've been talking about this story for months, Tracy and Blair. City officials posted the update on Facebook, thanking Congressman Mike Collins along with Senators Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock for their role in preventing this facility from being built. Senator Raphael Warnock issued a statement on today's news saying, in part, quote, "When we stand up and speak out, the power of the people is more powerful than the people in power." This has been an ongoing saga since the beginning of this year. The Department of Homeland Security wanted to convert an existing facility into a detention center that could hold up to 10,000 people. Officials with Social Circle pushed back, saying their town did not have the infrastructure needed to support the building. City officials added that it is their understanding that the building could be sold if there are no other federal agencies interested in it. A spokesperson said Social Circle is hopeful that the property will ultimately return to the local tax base and benefit people who live in the community. Tracy.
Wale, thanks.